G-20 finance ministers meeting taking place in Busan, South Korea. U.S. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner says that Europe and Japan must boost domestic demand to help the global recovery because the U.S. consumer can't carry the burden. And his plea comes as Europe's sovereign debt crisis took center stage at the G20 meeting, which took place in Busan, South Korea. And that's where our Zeb Eckert is. In fact, he traveled to the G20. He joins us this morning. And Zeb, let's talk about this. Not much accomplishments, someone say, at these discussions.
Well, Susan, a lot of talk, but as you said, not a lot of concrete action. And in fact, these central bankers and finance ministers played defense. They were in defensive mode, trying to defend what their economies are doing to stave off the European debt crisis and return to growth levels. Tim Geithner criticizing the Europeans, saying, don't depend on the U.S. to fix all of your problems. The Europeans, in turn, saying, we're going to get our debt crisis under control. It was a very interesting meeting. Recognizing the threat of contagion across the Eurozone, G20 finance ministers and central bankers Saturday agreed on a key principle. Nations with crippling public debt loads must move swiftly to bring them under control. With U.S. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner warning Europe it must balance fiscal consolidation with growth.
We all recognize, and you see it in the communique, you see it in everything we say, that recovery, a durable recovery, requires credible commitments to restore fiscal sustainability over the medium term.
In its communique, the G20 called on countries with unsustainable deficits to accelerate their budget cuts. UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, laying out Britain's plans to slash its deficit, the biggest in the G20. In an interview with Bloomberg, he shot down suggestions the UK is headed for a crisis similar to Greece.
Well, I think it's very important that countries are ahead of the markets, that countries are instilling confidence in their ability to pay their debts and live within their means.
With debt concerns front and center at these meetings, China and the debate over its currency reform took a back seat. And a setback for U.S. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. His push for a global banking tax appeared dead over the weekend as finance ministers delayed plans for tough new capital rules for banks. Attention inevitably shifting back to the crisis at hand, Europe's sovereign debt woes, with the Europeans defending the steps they've taken so far.
More than criticism from the rest of the world, I think that there has been, as is reflected in the communiqué, an appreciation, a praise for the decisions that have been taken by the Europeans.
And Susan, what's interesting here is this inherent shift, this clash in ideals over how to address this crisis. The U.S. obviously has one idea, and the Europeans, Susan, have another.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, they were expected to come to some conclusion about regulation, maybe bank capital, with Basel III being implemented by November. That was the original timeline, but it looks like it's going to be pushed back now. Zeb, thank you for that. Zeb Eckert reporting from the G20 finance ministers meeting taking place in Busan, South Korea over the weekend.